Welcome to the Construction Leading Edge podcast from buildermastermindgroup.com. My name is Todd Dawalt. It's my job to help you, the construction business owner and leader, eliminate chaos and maximize profits. I've got a great interview for you today with a friend of mine and a coaching client. His name is John Wojtas. He's the owner of PAXIsgroup, custom home building company in Georgia. And here's what you're going to get out of this interview. You'll find out why John downsized his business from 40 employees working in 19 states a few years ago down to 4 employees in 2020, and then how he has grown since the middle of 2020, where he had 4 employees. Now he has 13 or 14 employees. Here we are in September of 2021. We'll also talk about where John believes 80% of schedule overruns can be prevented. At what point in the project does he believe those overruns can be prevented? Why his company doesn't bid on projects and what he does instead. He talks about a surprising benefit of using a pre-construction services agreement. We talk about why John says he's not really in the building business, even though he is a custom home builder. John explains what the power of the pause is. Then we spend a few minutes talking about why he joined the Builder Mastermind Group and the benefits that he's seen as a member. And then the Crack the Code segment, where John shares one surprising strategy that he feels like he's cracked the code on involving his people. Great interview. John is a longtime builder, lots of experience in the commercial industry, very successful custom home builder, very successful entrepreneur, very smart guy. You're going to want to take some notes as you go through this interview. All right, John, thanks for doing this interview. So let's jump into it with some basic stuff for folks who don't know you. Tell us a little bit about your business, where you're located, the type of work you do, that kind of thing.
Well, PAXIsgroup is a custom home builder. We're located in the Lake Oconee area in Georgia, which is about 100 miles east of Atlanta. We do work in the Atlanta area as well as the Lake Country area, which is comprised of about 5 different counties surrounding the lake area. And we predominantly focus on custom design build, new homes, as well as larger renovations.
And how many employees do you have?
We currently have 13 employees, ranging from office, field personnel, selections, design, and all of those sorts of things.
Yeah, and you've seen some substantial growth in the last year or so since we started working together. What did your company look like, say, at the beginning of 2020, year and a half ago?
Yeah, so the beginning of 2020, we really committed to almost downsizing a number of years ago and really focused on the true custom design build in more niche markets as opposed to being spread all over the place. And what we found is, because of where we live, as well as people looking for the specific design build services that we do, we saw a huge influx of people that wanted to do business with us. And we try to be very discerning about who we do business with. We typically are looking at people that are high quality minded, discerning, clients that know what they want and are, because of us being a high quality minded design build firm and having a number of references, we found a huge influx of potential clients. 2 years ago, we were probably 4 individuals, and now we're at 13, and we're continuing to grow. I mean, we're really trying to control our growth, looking at our availability of resources, and our resources being not just the supply chain, which is challenged right now, but our resources in consultants that can work with us, trade partners, as well as team members that work with us in-house.
So let's talk about before you were a custom home builder. You spent a significant amount of your time of your career in the commercial world. Talk a little bit about your experience in commercial construction. What type of projects were you doing? And then why did you transition to the work you're doing now?
Yeah, so I started in the industry back in 1987 and worked almost exclusively on public educational and stadium projects throughout the country. So it was larger commercial and municipal public projects. I did that for almost 15 years. All of those projects were very heavily weighted in pre-construction services. Many of those projects would have a pre-construction phase, anywhere from 18 months up to 2 to 3 years if a bond referendum program was involved. So early on in my career, when I was cutting my teeth in the construction industry, I learned the importance of engagement of a number of different stakeholders in the project. I also learned the pre-construction side of things, looking at different phases of design, schematic design, design development, all the way up to construction documents. And like I say, I worked in that sector almost up until right around 2002. So about 15 years of my initial career was in that larger commercial setting. In 2002, beginning of 2003, I had an opportunity to kind of start my own business, which we started at that point to do to work in the multifamily and the for sale residential market in the Southeast. And it was a different pivot for me. I had a number of clients that I had worked with and partners that I had worked with in the past that were really looking for someone with my skill set in that sector. And they felt that there was really a void in that multifamily and residential market for someone that had my pre-construction experience. And we found early on that there was a need in those different sectors for someone that had that experience in the past. So what we do even today is we try to blend my commercial experience and all of the systems and the processes and that different way of thinking, and we put it into that residential world. As you well know, in 2008, 2009, 2010, we went through a change in the building industry. And at that point, we had to look and say, we had to remake ourselves and say, what do we really want to do? And at that point, we really focused on the consulting services for clients that were acquiring assets, either, through bankruptcy or buying fractured deals and that type of a thing. So until the building industry started again, we really just worked on, how to reposition assets and work in in different real estate functions that would then better serve us when construction started again. And then in 2013, we started full force again building. And I think 2013, we built probably around 150 homes that year. And 2014, we built over 200 homes in that year. And then just slowly started to really narrow our road in what we were building, and eventually moved into just custom design build, new construction and design build residential, renovations.
You mentioned that you downsized. So it sounds like you were building 200 homes, and then toward 2020, you decided, you were down to just a handful of folks. What led you to downsize and make that transition?
Yeah, so we've always had a mission statement and kind of a business model that we don't bid projects. We don't spend a lot of time and energy out blindly looking for clients. We really try to let our past work be our marketing arm of our company. We don't have a big marketing department within our company. We don't have a specified business development person within our company. We look at the past work we do and our previous clients as our referral source. So we had gotten to a point in 2015 to 2017 that we were working in 19 different states, scattered all over the country, doing work for specific clients. We had employees up to somewhere between 45 and 50 employees. And at one point, because of a couple life experiences that we had, we looked and said, life is too short. We lost a couple people that were really close to our family, and said we were going to consciously downsize our business and really, really focus on who we wanted to do business with and where we wanted to live. And so we moved out of the metro Atlanta area, moved out to an area that we felt was better for our family, and really tried to refocus what we did in late 2016. And went from really 4 people that we kind of downsized to up to the 13 people that we are right now.
You mentioned that there were some processes and skills that you carried forward from your background in commercial to the residential world. In my experience, there aren't a lot of people who have crossed over from one to the other. What would you say what are some of the most needed attributes of commercial construction that need to show up in residential construction?
I really think that proper planning of a project leads to a successful project. I think that 80 to 90% of all cost savings and schedule overruns can be mitigated before you ever break ground. And that takes time. That takes really working things out in the design process, building the project on paper, getting with your estimating team, getting with your construction team, getting with your selections coordinator, and really looking at the entire process and making sure that all of the questions, or as many questions as you can have answered beforehand, getting those things identified and solved before you ever break ground. Because once you break ground, there's only so many things you can control. There's only so many ways that you can pivot once you start. So in the commercial world, when you're dealing with multi-million-dollar projects, your cost overruns can be great, and you're also you have much less flexibility in changing design and that type of a thing. So in the residential world, most of the competitors or the people that I'm building right next to often think of it as much more of a simple, it's just a house design and just go build the house, where we try to look at it and break it up component wise. We try to break it up and look at availability of subcontractors and suppliers, and try to make sure that we uncover any of the pitfalls or any of the challenges beforehand. That doesn't mean we're perfect, but that does mean that we really try to look at it as a process-driven methodology that we go through, and we try to implement that on every one of our projects.
As you well know, I'm a big process guy, so that's you're speaking my language. And I would agree. Maybe some people who are listening to this hear when you said 80 to 90% of delays and problems can be prevented before you break ground, and think that's impossible. It's just the nature of construction, right? I've heard this a lot. It's just the nature of construction. Mm-hmm. But I think it's not the nature of construction. It's the nature of the way some people do construction. And it can be better. It can definitely be smoother. So there's clearly some there's a business case for better planning. And of course, there's more time that's required, maybe more staffing. But what's the biggest upside in your mind to spending all of that extra time planning on the front end?
Well, so what we do at the end of every project is we do a lessons learned on every project. And we approach it, first of all, I don't think there's ever a perfect project that can be done. So if you just embrace that not every project is perfect, and let's try to identify the pitfalls, or let's identify the stumbles that are along in every single project that you do. And we can go through and try to identify, why did those things happen? Why did that happen? Why did that happen? Asking the 5 whys in all of these situations, we can usually get to a root problem. And if we can identify those different lessons learned, we can continually get better project to project to project. Now, again, like I said, there's never a perfect project. Every single project we do is a little bit different, especially when you're dealing with custom projects. You have a different site, you have different designs, you have different clients you're dealing with, and we have different subcontractors that work together. So in identifying those lessons learned, hopefully we get a little more efficient. Hopefully we create a better environment for our employees to work in. We create a better environment for our trade partners to work in, and we create an experience for the homeowners or the buyers that when they're going through the entire build process, even the design process, we feel that that's a much better product that we can offer them as opposed to just being a builder.
So for those listening who don't know where to start, and they're thinking, I would love to put processes in place, I would love to eliminate problems, but I don't know where to start.
Mm-hmm.
Where would you recommend, what part of the design or planning or construction process would you recommend they start to invest some time and energy?
So for me, just about every single client that we work with, before we ever enter into a construction contract with, we enter into a pre-construction agreement with our clients. And we do that because we feel that there's a specific value associated with the pre-construction services we offer. We don't do free estimates. We don't just, run door to door and pull out a pad of paper and jot down what we think something's going to cost. I don't even tell people what we can do for them until I listen to what their wants and needs are. And there's clients that we can't serve. There's specific clients because of what they're asking for and the time frame and the budget, or just certain constraints that we're not a good fit for. So we truly believe that the pre-construction services that we offer that start in listening to the client, putting a good design team together, and then entering into our pre-construction services, which include the selections team that we have that identifies all of the finishes within the home, outside the home, the site conditions. And then we work with our estimating group and our trade partners to come up with a really good estimate as best as we can based on the information we have, and see how we can meld the needs and the wants with the budget constraints and the time constraints we have. So for us, it all starts with a successful pre-construction process. I think one reason that we invest in that so much is there's only so many things we can control. We can't control what all of the trade partners are doing on the outside. I can't control a plumber's business, an HVAC contractor's business, a framer's business. I can't control any of that. I can have past relationships, and I can have good relationships with a whole stable of trade partners. But once we start working with them, I can't control their personnel or other things within their business. So we try to identify what can we control, and what can we basically put the roadmap in place, set a good schedule, set good budget parameters, and then try to manage the process from there.
We had a conversation once about the pre-construction agreement, and you said, I'm paraphrasing, Todd, I hear you talking about getting paid for estimates a lot, like using the pre-construction agreement to get paid for estimates. And that's great. You said, we get paid for estimates, but that wasn't the best part for you. What is the number one benefit for you to using the pre-construction agreement if it's not to get paid for estimates?
I think there's a few things. I think the biggest thing is elimination of chaos and truly understanding what expectations are. And if we can do that, and we can really spend the time going through a schematic design, a design development, we can talk about constructability, we can talk about time frame, we can build a relationship with a client before it gets messy, before there's rain delays, before there's change orders, before a husband and wife team come in and start making selections or want to change things along the way, because those are all things that we just deal with. But if we can build a really good relationship and build that really strong foundation on the pre-construction side, then that is money that we've put in the bank. I guess, metaphorically speaking, money that we've put in the bank, a relationship that we've built that they know no matter what, we're looking out for their best interest. And I think that's the biggest thing, is that we can build a really strong communication skill. We can create true collaboration with our partners, and our partners I look at as our clients, our team members, and our trade partners. And when we have everybody engaged at the front, we've identified expectations. And that's what we really do, is we really meet expectations in the end, or we fail to meet expectations in the end. So for us, that pre-construction phase is really setting the foundation that we build the rest of the project on. And we all know in the building world how important a foundation is. So that's where we start. Before you ever, break ground, before you ever deliver a lumber pack to a job, we have a long relationship with clients. Just before this call, I had a client walk in the door and his job has been delayed because of weather delays. And we had a great conversation. It had absolutely nothing to do with the job. He just stopped by to say hello. And, we build these relationships, and they become lasting relationships after we're done with the build. And that's more important to us than anything, is building those relationships and doing what we say we're going to do.
I like that. I don't know that I've ever really thought about it, but the pre-construction phase is a good opportunity to deposit or develop some relationship capital and really focus on the relationship, because at some point you will need to make some withdrawals because of issues, mistakes, and that makes so much sense. I like that. Let me ask you one of my favorite questions that I ask just about everybody that I interview. What is one thing you believe to be true about business that some might say is unconventional, maybe even a little crazy?
This may sound crazy because I've been in the building industry since 1987, but I don't believe we're in the building industry. I think we are really in the communications industry. We implement a process. Okay. We have to listen to what the people want as an end product. By listening to what they want as an end product, we need to assemble pieces. So on the pre-construction phase, we need to assemble design consultants, architects, engineers, surveyors, estimators, collaboration with trade partners to finally get to a point that we can even start construction. Once we start the construction, we're actually not building. We build very little. Most of what we're building, we're utilizing people in the supply chain for materials, and we're utilizing trade partners to implement the actual construction itself. What we're doing is we're tracking the progress, we're updating schedules, we're updating budgets, and we're also just trying to communicate on a daily, a weekly basis so they understand where we're moving forward. And trying to continually keep people apprised of what's going on. And I think that goes many layers deep. That's not just communicating with the client through job logs and daily logs. It's communicating with subcontractors or trade partners that are going to be coming up, in the future doing work. It's communicating with supply houses, making sure we're getting deliveries. It's also communicating with future clients so they know where they fit within our overall schedule. So I think we're really in the communication world and in the management of expectations world more than anything. We're really a service industry that's managing the process, the building process. Our end product is a building. But what we really do is we manage the process. We manage the process from the moment that a couple says, you know what, we want to renovate. We want to tear this house apart and we want to rebuild it. Or someone says, we want to build a new home, and we work with them through the site selection process, the design process, the building. And we're there shepherding them the whole way through this process, that when we do a homeowner orientation, they walk through and their eyes are wide open and their jaw drops and they're like, oh my gosh, it's more than we ever expected. That's when we've done our job. And I think the communications world and that kind of thinking out of the box that way. Yes, I have schooling in construction, and I built, thousands of different facilities or buildings. But really what we do at this point is we manage the process. And from where I sit, I don't just manage the client's expectations, I'm managing our team and making sure that they're trained up and making sure that they're all collaborating as a team together, making sure that they're collaborating with our trade partners and our suppliers. And in today's world, when the supply chain is challenged as much as it is, we're continually looking for new resources on the trade partner side, as well as the supply chain side, because I can't give every single framing job to one framer. I can't give every single electrical job to an electrician, and so on and so on. I need to make sure that they don't get so overwhelmed with our projects that they're unable to perform. So we're constantly trying to look for new resources that we can bring on that have a similar mindset, that we can put on a job and be very comfortable that they have an end goal that's similar to our end goal in mind. And that's really making sure that the process is as smooth as possible. I want our clients, if it's clients that work within our company, clients that have us building a home for them, or the trade partners that are clients of ours as well, I want them to say that there's no question they want to work with PAXIS. So that communications piece is critical with every single position that we have within our business, as well as our trade partners being able to communicate when they think they're going to get to a job, how long it's going to take, make sure that they're protecting other trades work, all the way down the chain. So that communication phase, I think, is sometimes something that's missed and it's taken for granted. And our lessons learned have often showed us that whenever we stumble, it usually gets down to a lack of information, a lack of communication, or timely communication.
Hey, it's Todd. We'll get back to the episode in just a minute, but let me ask you something. Have you ever signed a contract and then everything starts to feel a little bit chaotic? Questions fly around like, who's ordering what? When does the job actually start? Is the team ready? Did anybody order this material? Has this been approved yet? Project starts to feel like a fire drill, right? Well, the biggest problem in most construction businesses isn't a lack of effort. It's not the people. It's not the projects. It's not the clients. It's not you. It's the gaps in your process. Gaps where details fall through the cracks, where nobody's sure what to do, who's doing what, when it gets done, and you, the owner, end up filling in all those gaps, right? When there are questions, who they got to call. If there's a problem, it's going to land in your lap. And the biggest gap is pre-construction. And the solution is simple. Nailing the handoff from sales to construction. Nail the handoff from the office to the field. Your projects are like a relay race, and there's a baton that needs to be handed off. Nailing the handoff is a well-designed pre-construction process that closes those gaps, eliminates the chaos, and gives you back control. It gives you back the time so you can work on the business instead of being buried in it. And we can help you build that process. The first step is to book a free business evaluation call with our team. On your business evaluation call, here's what we're going to help you do. Spot the real gaps that are creating the chaos, show you how to nail the handoff and how doing that will put you back in control of your business. We'll even uncover some of the hidden profit that's already in your business. And if it makes sense, we'll talk about how we can help you build a business that runs without you. Click the link in the show notes to schedule your call. Be advised, we only have a few spots available each week, and not everybody qualifies for this call. This is not for everybody. So if you have a wave of work coming at you, or you're planning on growing and hiring people, now's the time to close those gaps with a good pre-construction process. If you're ready to stop reacting and finally take control, this is your next step. Go book your free business evaluation call with my team today. That is a different lens to look at it through, but I completely agree. I've often said when I was managing large commercial projects, I didn't build anything. My job was to be an information broker and just make sure that the right people had the right information at the right level of detail at the right time. And if I did that, the stuff got built right. If I didn't, then things fell through. But I think, as you're saying that, one of the things that I hear a lot that's a constant challenge is, how do I get my superintendents to fill out daily logs? Well, that goes back to a fundamental misunderstanding of their job. If they think they're in the building business and they completely devalue, or if they don't understand they're in the communication business, they won't fill out daily logs. But somebody who understands they're in the communication business, they will fill out daily logs. And a custom builder who understands their job is to communicate and set expectations, they'll overinvest in that. And makes a lot of sense. So I think I would agree. Some people probably think that's a little unconventional, but I think at least two of us agree. At least two of us agree. So shifting gears, we've been working together for a little over a year now. We started working together in, I think, June or July of 2020 in my coaching program. And what has been the biggest challenge or issue or area of chaos that we've worked together to either solve or help solve in your business?
Yeah, so from the chair that I sit in and looking at how real large companies have been run as well as very small companies are run. And through my career, when I started out, I went to work with a company that had over 800 employees, and we've had as little as 2 employees. So I've seen a lot of different ways to run the business. And I think when I first reached out to you, the biggest thing I was looking for is someone that could help me, someone that had experience in looking at organizational structure as well as proper staffing. How do I build the business to scale and not sacrifice the processes and what we want to do, and being able to look at what does our organizational structure need to look like without jeopardizing the product that we're getting out the door? How do I look at it from an entrepreneurial mind as well as someone that is able to hold all of my clients accountable? And again, clients, I mean employees, outside clients, and trade partners. And you've been a tremendous help in whenever I've had challenges to be able to help me talk through and walk me through based on your experience with, people all over the country that have similar types of businesses, and figure out how does it best fit our specific needs.
And how have things gone for you as far as developing that organizational structure, since we've been working together.
Yeah, when I look back a little over a year ago, I think I first made contact with you probably in June or July of 20. And I think it resembles our company back then resembles what we are now, very little. At that point, I was really an employee of the company as opposed to someone that's running a business. And you and the peers that I've been able to had the pleasure of working with and talking to have really allowed me to see the business through a different light. And it has allowed us to move forward in a positive way. We've been able to set short-term and long-term goals, and you've been really good at keeping me accountable and not just being a yes person, questioning some of the things I say and why do you really think that? And that may not be the most beneficial way to approach something. So you've challenged me in a lot of different ways to really look and say, is that in alignment with your core values? Is that in alignment with where you want to move to in the future? In some cases, you've agreed that I think the way you're doing things is the right way to do it. But more importantly, it's challenged me to step back and think out of the box and really look at some of the other people's experiences that you've worked with or I've had the pleasure now of speaking with and saying, okay, what has worked with you in the past? And let me see if I can implement some of that stuff within our business. And a number of people in our team have benefited from that. And I think that's a win-win all the way around.
Well, I'll say you and Heather are fantastic implementers. You guys have done a tremendous amount of work in the last year or so and dealt with unprecedented demand, incredible growth to go from 4 employees to 13 to triple in size in a little over a year, putting new systems in place, dealing with COVID, the supply chain issues, a few other hits, a few other curveballs that have been pretty tough. But you guys have been fantastic implementers and have really stuck it out. What is different now on the other side of all this work you've done for the past year or so? What are some of the biggest differences for you now that you've gone through all of this work?
I think the biggest thing is that we're proactively managing as opposed to reactively managing. We're trying to, in our business, we try to emphasize the pre-construction side, and we try to emphasize building the stuff on paper and really thinking and planning. And before, we may have preached that when we were dealing with projects outside of our actual office, but now we're actually putting a number of more efficient systems in place. We have made some really smart hires, and with those hires, we've tried to really think about what does that position look like? What do they do? What's the processes we want them to own, and how do they interact with the other people within the business, as opposed to just bringing on a body and saying, go put out some more fires. Because sometimes in the construction industry, you can either be a fireman or a jerk. Other words you could probably use, but we look at it and say, if we can be proactively managing and we can be a communications person, let's figure out what lanes people need to be in. Let's train them for what they need to be doing. And let's figure out how they collaborate and hand information over and back and forth with the people they're working with, if that's either in the office or outside of the office. And we find that that's a much more effective way. So we've seen a huge reduction in chaos and virtually no finger pointing, because people are willing to take accountability for what they've done. And it doesn't mean that mistakes still don't happen. But when mistakes happen, first of all, we try to find a solution before it becomes a problem. I don't think that problems are innate. on a project. I think that situations that need resolution happen all the time. And I think the successful businesses identify those situations as quickly as possible. They find a good solution that benefits all parties, and we try to move forward in that direction. And then after the fact, we try to go back to figure out what that situation was and why did that situation happen. Some things are totally out of our control. Some things we own. Some things happen because we just broke down in our systems. And so we really try to look at it from that lens, and it's not a finger pointing office. When we make mistakes, we stand up and we take care of it. And when there's other challenges, we try to figure out how to mitigate them in the future.
You mentioned that a little over a year ago, you felt like an employee working in the business and not so much of a CEO of the business. What feels different about the business, or how do you feel differently about your business now versus now that you've done all of this work versus where you were a little over a year ago?
I think the big thing is I want to be able to create a positive environment for all the stakeholders. And when I'm working day to day in the business, I'm typically working on specific tasks that are, I may be out on a job laying out foundations or working with a framer or doing a framing inspection or doing a walkthrough on a house. And I don't have the opportunity to step back and look at the business as a whole. And when I can step back and look at the business as a whole, I can look at it from the marketing side. I can look at it from the pre-construction side. I can look at it from the design side or the construction side. And I can also have myself available to the people that need you to bring your experience out to the field, or a designer's having a challenge with something. And when I put really capable people in place and train them properly and let them do their job and let them have the autonomy and the responsibility and the authority to do their job, then I can take a step back and get to a 20,000, 30,000, 40,000 foot level and look at the business as a whole and look at the projects and be able to look at schedule, look at budgets that are overrun, and really try to identify those situations and always be looking, weeks, months ahead and figure out how does it best serve our business and how does it best serve our clients? How does it best serve our trade partners? So the biggest thing it's done is it's removed me from just the day-to-day almost building activities that I really got myself into, as opposed to how do we manage a proactive business that serves the needs of our clients.
Got it. Let's talk about the mastermind group that you were a founding member of, that you've been part of for a little over a year now. What led you to join the mastermind group? In other words, what problem were you trying to solve by joining that group?
So I kind of joined almost by accident to begin with. It wasn't that I was aware that there were challenges that needed to be solved at the time. I actually had the pleasure of seeing you speak at a show in Miami. And while I was at that show in Miami, there was a lot of collaboration with other business owners where we could all speak openly and kind of showing our underbelly. Where are we having these challenges? Where are we having, problems or situations that we just can't get to the end of? And for me, being able to sit around in a room or around dinner and talk about some of these, challenges either in our industry or some of the things that we were having problems with, a lot of solutions were brought to the table. It's a little bit different than me being in my own community and wanting to go to lunch with 4 or 5 other custom builders that are in my community that I'm probably not going to share some of these other things with. So the mastermind group was really this eye-opening experience that I could sit down and I could just be me. I didn't have to put up these false, pretenses about who I am and how our business is going. I could come out and say, I'm really having a challenge with this. I just don't know how to approach this idea. How do you do it? And in some cases, people are doing business in our same sector that were implementing different processes that I had just never even thought of. So it was taking almost the best of the best and some of the real challenges that I'd never even thought of and putting it together in this think tank. And when we could just openly collaborate about these things, in some cases, it gave me solutions that I could implement in the future. But one of the biggest things that's come out of it is I've heard some of the challenges that some of these other builders have been going through that we hadn't experienced. But by talking through them, it allowed me to implement processes so we make sure that we don't experience those same pitfalls. And that's been, you can't put a value on stuff like that. So I think that open collaboration and just, we've created friendships with people, and you can openly talk. And if we have a situation that we don't know how to deal with, I can call up 3 or 4 people, or I can get on our Slack and I can throw a question out there, and people will share information back, and they're not sharing it because they get anything, they're not getting a monetary thing out of it. They're sharing it because they want to share their successes. And in turn, we end up succeeding as well. And hopefully the other people in the mastermind group that I'm with are experiencing the same type of thing that I'm experiencing.
Yeah, it's such an interesting dynamic. How it's not surprising, but it's pretty cool how generous people are and how open people are and how much people want to help others. It's like maybe not everybody's like this, but the vast majority of the people in the mastermind group want to help other people. If they have something valuable to share, they want to help other people. They've taken their lumps, they've taken the hits. And I know personally, I think back to some of the hits I've taken. If I can help somebody avoid that hit, then I want to help them. I don't like to see people making the same mistakes I did. So I think that's interesting, seeing things that are coming that you haven't seen yet. So learning about problems other people are seeing that you haven't experienced yet, so you can prevent them. Plus, how do you deal with things that you're currently dealing with, building relationships? If you had to boil it down to, if you had to pick one thing that is most valuable to you about being in the Builder Mastermind group, what would you say that is?
You've heard me share in the past about my belief in the power of pause. And when I really look at that, I think one thing that a lot of companies are missing is leadership. And you need to be able, every company needs a leader, and every company has a leader. It may not be the person that sits at the top of the company. It may not be the person that started the company. It may not be a good leader, but every company ends up having a leader. And I needed to be able to take a proactive step to be a leader and be able to be the calming force within the business, and to be able to look at our mission statement and look at our core values and be able to say, no matter what situation we're in, to be able to look back on those other things and say, are we in alignment with those things? And the mastermind group has given me the ability to say, I'm going to invest in myself. I'm a very strong proponent about education and continuing education and learning and continually learning. And I'll tell every single employee, go out and get whatever classes you need. We'll pay for it. We'll do that. But that was one thing that I wasn't doing for myself. And so when I first decided to go with you, that was an investment in me. And in turn, that's been one of the greatest investments of our business, because I was willing to say that I don't know it all. I need to learn. I need to learn from other people. And, I've got 2 eyes and 2 ears, and I had to look at how other people were, operating their businesses. And I needed to listen to their success stories and their challenges, and to be able to sit back and figure out how can I take away the good and avoid the bad has been one of the biggest takeaways that I've learned from our group. And the great part is after a year, I have not seen any stagnation in that information or the ability of other people in the team to share, because they're all growing as well. So the great part is when you look at the mastermind group that I'm part of, we've all grown so much in the last year because of our own experiences and us implementing certain processes and working together, that the quality of the information and the conversations we have are so much more advanced now than they were a year ago. And that to me is so exciting, because we just continue, we're committed to getting better, and we're committed to working together. And we're also this accountability group that says, hey, you set these goals aside for this next month. How are you doing on that? What can I do to help you get over that next step? Or if I have a pre-construction agreement that I like working with, I can share it with someone and not worry about, sharing trade secrets, because I know if I need something in the future, I can reach out and someone's going to, unselfishly share that with me as well. And that is just something was kind of a mind-blowing, epiphany that was like, wow, these resources are really out here. Everybody working towards that common goal and trying to get better together, that we as a group could do what one of us couldn't do on our own. And I think that's critical.
It's beautiful. Rising tide lifts all boats, right?
Yeah.
So let's land on what I like to call the crack the code segment. What is one specific part of your business that's working well for you that you would be willing to share about? In other words, maybe start with the issue you were dealing with, and then what system or process or approach did you start using to solve that problem?
Yeah, I think it goes back to the lessons learned where I look at the people within the business. I think, again, it has very little to do with actual construction, but it actually has to do with skill sets of people and how we're communicating and what the end product is, and identifying people's strengths and weaknesses, and really accentuating people's strengths and letting them work in environments that they really thrive in, and teaching people that they have the ability to delegate certain things and they can hand them off to something else, to people that are better suited to do those things. And also looking at how do we automate our business and create processes that we're not reinventing the wheel every single project. That, again, as a leader, how do I look at the most efficient system that we can when we're going in and making people's dreams a reality? Because that's what we do. Our tagline for our business is building lifestyles. We don't say building homes or doing a renovation. We're making your lifestyle come to life. That is something that we constantly are doing, is looking at our team and saying, what are you good at? What can we train you up in if you stay within the job duties that you're in right now? Or in some cases, we've taken project managers and pulled them out of the project management role and turned them into selections coordinators, or turned them into the estimating side, and figured out what are they best at doing and what do they really like doing? What makes them tick? So that for me it goes into that communications thing and listening and hearing what makes people successful. And if we can have the people across our entire business be successful and love working and love doing what they do, the end product just happens. You know, in the building industry, I think that if you just let subcontractors and trade partners go and do a job, they could probably build 90% of a project on their own without us. Is it going to meet the needs of the client? Is it going to get done on time? Is it going to actually get done? Is the warranty process going to be a smooth process, owner-centric, looking at your best interest? So it's constantly looking at growth within the business. And that doesn't mean adding people or adding clients. It means improvement of systems, constantly looking at how do we try to get better day by day? Because if we aren't committed to getting better day by day, and if we aren't committed to growth, then we're just going to stagnate. And we're not going to be able to stay up on things. You shared with me, 3 words in a recent conversation we had, and it was that times have changed. What are we doing about it? You can sit and you can complain about it. You can say it's totally out of our control, or you can start thinking out of the box. You can start looking at different ways to do things. We've recently hired someone that just manages our warehouse. We've hired someone that just does procurement. People that really focusing on buyout and buying things out in a different way, because the times have changed. And we've been able to do that proactively in projects because we weren't afraid of growth. And we weren't afraid of saying, your skill sets are really good over here, but we think they'd be excellent over here. What do you think about that? And in some cases, we've moved employees into different situations, and we've seen them just explode and flourish and then take ownership. And as a result, there's a better product in the end for everybody that's involved. So I think that's a big thing, is that commitment to continual growth. And in the end, the product that we're delivering happens to be a custom built house or a custom renovation. And because we're committed to that growth and we're committed to that collaboration and that sharing of resources, the product just becomes better and better every one that we produce.
The product sort of takes care of itself when you focus on the people and the communication and the process. Well, great stuff, John. I've been looking forward to this one, and it did not disappoint. If people want to connect with you, follow you, whether it's website, social media, wherever they can follow you or find you, where are some good places for them to go?
PAXISgroup.com. And then we also have a Facebook page, and we have an Instagram page. That's probably the best way, is through our website or through our Facebook or through our Instagram page.
Perfect. I'll find those links. I'll put those in the show notes so you folks can follow John and the Paxis Group. John, great stuff. I really appreciate it. It's been a pleasure working with you for the last year or so. I look forward to working with you in the future, and it's been a pleasure having you on the podcast. Thanks so much for taking the time to share.
Thank you, Todd. You've been a irreplaceable resource for us. We appreciate everything you do.
I appreciate that. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Hey, it's Todd here. One more thing before you go. Remember, if you're dealing with chaos every day, if you're spending too much time in firefighting, if your whole team is in reactive mode, it's probably not your team, it's not your clients, it's not your project, it's not you, it's the gaps. And the biggest gap is the one between signing a contract and starting the job. That's where the details get missed. That's where the stress begins. And the fix is simple. It's a solid pre-construction process so you can nail the handoff from the office to the field. We want to help you build that out. And the first step is to schedule your free business evaluation call. Click the link in the show notes. We're going to help you identify the root cause of your chaos, show you how to unlock the profit that's already in your business, and we'll lay out a plan to help you nail the handoff. And if it makes sense, we'll talk about what working together looks like. So click the link in the show notes to schedule your call with my team. Be advised, calls are very limited and not everybody qualifies for these calls. So go book your call today, and I'll see you next time.